As you're joining, let me know where you're watching from, what country. If you're not in the US, or if you're in the US, let me know. Today we'll be doing something a little different because I will not be whispering. Today I will be talking and I'll be painting. So what we will be doing will be a little different, but I hope you can follow along. And if you want to do it with me, definitely pull out your sketchbook, some paint, and let's do this together. So I want to follow up today with the same principle that we were doing in our live yesterday. In our live yesterday, I was talking about how it can be seen in Van Gogh's paintings that the colors that he uses to paint the sky, he also uses them on the mountains or the flat irons, whatever he is doing on the earth aspect of his paintings. So I want to follow up on that today, and this time we will not be using coloring pencils. We'll be using some acrylic paint. So I have my little palette here, and I've already selected some colors that I may or may not expand on. So far I'm using just colors from the dollar store, nothing too fancy, and some brushes I have laying around. And we'll start with a blue, a very traditional blue for the sky. I've mixed this blue that I have here with some purple, and what it does to the blue is it creates a color called Celeste blue, or depending where you're looking up the color, it may have different names. And this is going to be my base that I'm working with, but it will not be limited to this color because, as you can see, today I want to work with some pink, some purple, and some blue. So that purple that I added to the blue is just going to give it a little more depth, and we will also be adding the purple by itself to see what sort of colors we can play around with. So let's begin with the principle that we're talking about and just do some streaks of that blue on the mountains. And we might do it a little more calculated than we were yesterday. So let's be conservative because this is a dark color, and we need to be careful because if we're doing too much of it, we just might make the entire drawing a little too dark for what we're looking for. Or your eyes might be overwhelmed if you do too much of it. So I'm done with this dark Celeste blue that we've made. Let's add some of this purple. I want to play around. It's a darker purple, but I want to see how it looks when we mix it around with the blue. And we also use it on the mountains, as if the mountains were reflecting the light of the sky. The sunset, the sunrise, whatever you want to make this out to be. I see Kenzie, Singing with Kenzie in the chat. Hello Kenzie, thank you for watching. So I'm going to put this purple centered a little bit more than the blue and towards the middle, and you will see why in a little bit, because as you can see I also have a yellow, orangey yellow in my palette, so we'll be using that one as well. And now that I've laid around that purple to create a bit of a gradient, we will be using it as well, what we were saying about the mountains reflecting the colors of the sky. And because it is also a darker shade, let's use it conservatively because we do not want our entire painting to be too dark. We want to be able to have some contrast for your eyes to make out what is in this painting. And we're not overthinking where we're putting the purple. We're just laying it on and seeing where it falls. As long as it frames the painting and it looks good. So I'm going to wash my brush because I'm going to start using a brighter color. In this case, let's use that beautiful yellow that we have on our palette. I'm going to make sure my brush is very clean because any hint of that purple will completely change the color of this yellow because they are different on the color theory. They are very far from each other and it can just darken that orange, and we don't want that. We want the orange and the yellow to stay light the way it is. So I've piled it on, and again, these are not expensive paintings, expensive paint bottles. These are from the dollar store, $1.25 each of them. So we are working with what we have, and I've laid it on bright for the center, which is the sun. And what I'm gonna do is mix it with a little bit, a tiny bit, if you can see that, a tiny bit of red. I'm gonna mix it up with that yellow, and I'm gonna create an orange color because I want the sun to blend in with the sky. And so we cannot just blend that yellow with the purple. We need to have a color that is going to be the bridge between the sun and the sky. So as you can see, we got a bit of that purple mixed with the yellow, and that's what I was talking about. But it's not a problem. We can just make a bit more of that orange and continue using it as a bridge color between the sun and the sky. And the closer this light gets to the sky, the more red it's going to become. So let's get that red up in there. And because this red, let's test it. It's from the dollar store. It may not have much depth, or it's all right. It's not bad. So we can simply mix it right on the paper. And the paper that I'm using is specially made for wet media. So if you try this on normal paper, what you'll find is that you'll be slowly working that paper into disappearing. You will tear it apart, if you will. So now that we've put that beautiful red on there, let's get back in with that purple, because the purple is a bridge between the blue and the red. So we want to make sure that it's very well blended. There you go. Just a little bit made that big difference. And I hope you see that as well. Hello, Sonic and Crafty and friends. Thank you for watching. I see you in the chat. So what I want to focus on doing right now, let's pick up with the smaller brush, this brush, let's pick up that yellow that we have, and let's just lay it on the mountains, because we want the mountains to stand out from everything else, from the sky. We don't want the mountains to blend in and for you to not know what is what. So we'll use the yellow as a filler, and we'll see how that works out. And if it's not good, we'll add some more colors that will create a contrast. And so you can really see actually on the paper the quality of these paints. It's not very great, but that should never stop you from using them and making the best of them, because trust me, even the smallest, the lowest quality of the paint can be worked with, and you can make something great out of it. So now I'm getting to really use that yellow, put it to work on the rest of the painting. And we are not even halfway there with our painting. We might run out of the white space, but it does not mean that we're getting done here, not at all. We're gonna really lay on the colors and overlap until the painting looks good. And to be completely honest, that's one of the secrets of painting. You have to continue. Continue until the vision that you have in your head becomes what you have on the paper. And that might take a while, that might take a lot of colors, but in my experience, it creates really beautiful paintings. All right, so we're running out of blank spaces here, out of the white space. And one thing that I'm gonna take the time to do is to draw to paint in the river that we have here. So I made this mix earlier of blue and purple. So it's very watery mix that we've made. That's completely okay. I'm gonna go over that with this purple here. Sorry, this blue, the original blue straight from the bottle. So I'll mix it in. All right, so now that we have the river there, let's get back into the sky and define those clouds. We have some empty spaces, those are the clouds. So as you can see, I have some white here, and what I'm gonna do, this is a wonderful trick for making clouds. You take the white, you pile it on to the white, white on white, and now that we have already these other colors on the painting, what this is gonna do, if it mixes with it, is it's going to create a very light shadow. And what this does is it creates the shadow of the clouds. And if what we have on there is not enough, watch what I'm doing on my palette. You'll take a little bit of white, you'll mix it with a little bit of that blue, create a darker shadow for the clouds. So now we lay this on, and what it does, it gives dimension to the clouds, and it creates that definition for the clouds. So this is a triangle shaped cloud, but let's get working on the other ones. And here I'll create the shadow first, but I'm gonna go ahead and take the white and then do exactly what we just did with the other cloud. Make sure that it looks cute and fluffy, and if it mixes with the colors that we have on the sky already, that is perfect, because it's going to create a shadow. And that shadow is what's going to give the cloud volume and make it look fluffy and like it's really wrapped around the sky. So let's go back in, some more white. Make those clouds look fluffy. And look how it mixes so beautifully with what we already have on the paper. And it just gives volume to those clouds. Clouds are a lot easier to paint than you would imagine. And you know what? Now that I'm looking at it, what I want to do is create a darker cloud, like over here maybe, or over here. I can't decide, but let's try over here first. And so I'm gonna put very little of that lighter white. I'm gonna mix it on my palette, some purple, some blue, make it darker so that it is a shadow, an appropriate shadow far away. Okay, now I'm gonna go back in with that white to make it fluffy. So let's make it fluffy. There it goes. Then I'm gonna add one more layer of that white, a very thin one, just to add a little bit more volume to that cloud. And it'll be right at the top. Because if we do it at the bottom, it's gonna erase the shadows that we've created. So here at the top, we'll do some of that white. I might need to get some more white. These are the paints that I'm using, straight from the dollar store. Nothing too fancy, anybody can do it. And there you go. We pile it on and we give that fluffiness to the painting that we have. And sometimes messy is good. If we leave these messy, it might make it look like more real clouds. That's perfect. And you know, as I'm looking at these two clouds, I want more shadows on them. So I'm gonna take some of this mix that I already made of white and purple. And I'm just gonna pile it on to the white, random places, using my brush, being playful with it. Might do some at the top as well, because clouds are kind of round. That's what gives it the volume. And you know, I want some more purple. I love purple and pink, so let's do some more purple on the shadows of that cloud that I did earlier. Right. And you know what? I feel like this one's getting left out, so let's add a bit of purple there as well. Bit of purple, some undertones there so that it's reflecting the light of the sunset, sunrise, whatever we have going on here. And I might have gone a little too hard with that purple, but we can go back in with the white, blend it in, and it will be fine. Now if we've lost that fluffiness, let's go back in with the white. Boom. We have that fluffiness coming back. And the important part here is to use a bright, solid white, because it gives that fullness, that impression of fullness to the cloud. All right, so I'm gonna leave the clouds the way they are. Maybe I'm a fan of adding clouds to my painting, so I might add one more, just one more at the bottom, but this one will be a little less traditional. Let's mix some purple, some of that blue that we were using at the very beginning for the sky, and then let's do one right here, and it will be a darker cloud. We want this one to be a bit darker, because in my head, the way I'm creating it, it's far away. And the further away they are, the darker they are as well. That's very good. I like that. So let's do a little bit of that fluffiness. Let's add that to the painting. A little bit of that fluffiness with the solid, a very rich white color. And from there, create that fluffiness on that cloud. I like the way it just fades away to the right. Alright, so let's fix now what we have going on the rest of the painting. Now that the clouds are looking good, let's go back. And this has dried a little bit, so let's go back with that yellow. And we'll do an even layer. And what this will do, it will go over that red that we did earlier. We'll mix a little bit with that orange that we did. And what this will do is make the sunset blend and have a gradient, which is how sunsets look. And I will leave the sunset like that because now I want to focus on the mountains. And I'm debating what color to do. Let's try some of that pink that I put on my palette earlier. And let's define the mountain with that pink. And we're just playing around. Let's see what comes out of it. I will use a different brush for that because this one is a little bit too big. So let's define the mountains with this pink. Make it look different from everything else. So let's just pile it on. What we want to do, just draw a difference, draw a line between the sky and everything else. Because let's go back to what I said at the beginning of this painting. The concept that we're really playing with is using the colors of the sky on the mountains, as if the mountains are reflecting the light of the sky onto them. So let's add more and more of that pink. This one is a different brand from the purple and the blue that I've been using, so you might actually notice that it's a bit more transparent. So as I'm applying it, you can really see those colors underneath. So I think it's working on top of the yellow best. So let's just keep piling it on, putting that where we find it fit to define those mountains. That is our job right now. Give it some definition. We might go over what we have, but we want to give it definition. That's the task at the moment. And then let's have this one blend into the mountains and leave the middle of this mountain to be yellow. I like that yellow. So we'll take some water. It's already a transparent pink, but if we take some water, it becomes even more transparent. And we will let it blend a little bit better. So that way we keep this definition for the mountain. And I will add a little bit of that blue because I want this pink to be strong and to define that mountain the best possible. So again, just really showing you that no matter the quality of the painting, the paint that you're working with, you can make a decent painting out of it. So let me take some more of that pink. This is the pink, that infamous pink that we've been talking about. I'm going to take some of that pink and continue to pile it on, and I might have to wait a little bit till it dries and come back to it to really get that definition from it. But while that happens, I'm gonna add it to these empty white spaces that I still have over here, give it some balance with the rest of the painting. And from here, what's really going to make a difference is when I use brown, because brown is going to stand out from everything else that we've created. Right? Looks so beautiful with that yellow underneath. Alright, so while we have this pink drying so we can pile it on, let's do this. Let's see if we can do it with an aquarelle pencil. What these pencils do, they activate with water. So I will dip it in my water a little bit. Then I'm going to start, let's see how this works. I'm going to start defining the little houses. And I might fill it in later and I'll do another color. But I think that what this color is really going to help me do is define those hills that we put in our painting. So let me take that blue that we had earlier and fill in the little house with that blue. Let's do this one too. A little bit of blue. A lot of blue. And then we'll come back with a darker shade and we'll give it shape, better shape. We'll give it some definition. So let's make all the houses blue. In this village that we're making up today, the houses are gonna be blue. We're not worrying too much about the definition of the windows, of the doors, because we will get to that next. Let's have this reflect a little bit. Mix in, we'll let it mix in with the purple and the pink to give the impression that the light of the hills is reflecting onto the house. So we'll fill it in with that blue. And now let me grab a darker shade, a black. Usually I don't do a lot of black, but I think that if we use it lightly today, it will work. It will work out. See what we have here. I have zinc. Another alternative that I usually love doing, instead of using black, I will use a really dark green. And that is what most professional artists recommend for doing your shadows. The reason being that when you mix green with a lot of other colors, it creates a deep color that is almost black. So you can technically make black out of other shades, but it will not look as dark. It will not look like a Sharpie. So let's take a little bit and let's be conservative. Let's see how strong this green is, and we'll use it to outline the houses. I might need to deepen it a little bit, so let's do this. Let's take, on a clean space on my palette, a little bit of that green, a little bit of that blue, and a little bit of red. Mix it up. And that created a different shade of green. It's not as dark, but let's see. If we use it to blend into the house, there you go. Becomes more solid. And we can come back and give some definition to that. Now what I'm gonna do is mix it with water. So I'm gonna wipe off most of the paint from my brush. I'm gonna dip it into my water, and with that transparency that I'm creating, let's create some shadows, because what this is really missing, some depth. So let's create some shadows here, as if the mountains in the back are more far away than the ones that we have at the front. This is just using that green and that transparent color. And once this has dried, we'll come back and do another layer, because the more layers we do of that same color, the more depth it's going to give what we're doing. So let's come back here. Let's do a little bit piling it on. And then blending it out so that we don't have such a straight line. Wonderful. And it's all ready. I can see it getting a better shape. You can actually start to see what's in the back, what's in the front. It's beautiful. So with this one, we will do the same thing. Grab a little bit of green, grab a little bit of water with it. Make it really blend into the mountain that we have at the front. And the key here after doing this will be to grab more of that green. And then, of course, everything we have at the back should be darker. So we grab that solid green color and we give it some definition. And we'll do the exact same thing we just did, which is we'll give it definition, but because we don't want a harsh, straight, just green line on our painting, we will wipe it off a little bit, take some water, and we will blend it in with what we have. This is tricky because of the quality of the paint, but we can make it work. That's our challenge today. Working with very affordable paint that anybody can purchase and make something beautiful out of it. So we have been creating layers with this green. This might be the last layer that we do. There you go. Giving it more depth, and I will dry off my brush and just brush a little bit, make it blend even more, but it's not going to take away that depth because I'm not wiping all of it, just little bits and pieces. So now that we're creating definition, let's make sure that we are paying attention to all those spots where the distance is different from the rest. So again, taking that green, laying it on, wiping our brush, making sure that we are blending it into what we have so that we don't just have a green line on our painting. And one thing that is challenging about using dollar store paint is the transparency of those of the paint, and the transparency will really show in your painting. But one way that you can get around this, well, there's two ways that you can get around this. One is you can simply wait, come back, and use layers to really get around the transparency of the low quality paint. The other one is you can add cornstarch to these acrylic bottles, and the cornstarch will thicken. It will thicken the paint, and so it may become less transparent for you to work with. It might be better quality, as you could say better quality, but it's just cornstarch that you're adding to it. So let's do a little gate here that we did earlier. Make sure it does not get lost. And one thing about me is that I really like to stick to the brushes that I'm working with. I rarely switch brushes. That's just my style personally, and it's nothing more than stubborn. Me being stubborn, to be honest. But we can still maneuver and use the brush that we have to create some lines. So I'm just going to be stippling with the brush because it's a square brush, and with that I'm creating these lines for the gate. And I'm looking at the house at the bottom right. I'm already thinking I want to see pink on those windows. I want to see some pink. But the one thing about the pink that we're working with is that it is very very transparent. So what we're gonna have to do is lay it on first. Lay on the pink, and then we'll go back with the green, and then that green is what's going to give it the definition. With the pink, we'll just make it a little more whimsical, if you will. And I think for the door, I'll do pink and I'll do yellow, because we want that touch of making it whimsical. So you rarely see yellow doors anymore. I've only seen one in the last 5 years. So let's play around with that yellow, that pink, and look at that. Now we'll do some outlines on what we have. Before we do that, let's go back to the hill that we have at the very back. What I want to do, some of that stippling the way I did it with the gate, just to create some of that definition, because we cannot forget that behind the hill that we have at the very back, there's still more things going on. So this green is going to give the illusion that there is more happening behind that hill that we have. And it'll just blend in with everything else. And like we've been doing, we'll do it again. Let's blend out these green straight lines that we've created. I'll do just one more on this pink hill. And I will draw it, lay it on. I'll dry my brush. And then with the dry brush, just make it blend into what we have on that hill. And that helps because we don't want to have just some green lines on our painting. So for that one at the back, because the pink is a lot lighter than the green, we'll take some water, we'll blend it into the pink. We'll blend the green into the pink. And that gradient will make it look more blended. And so let's take this pink, this green, finish off the hill we have at the back, make sure it's included, and this other side of the hill that we didn't do. Just making sure that everything that is at the back has the darker shade that we're working with. And again, dry the brush a little bit, blend it into the hill that we've made. Okay, here we cannot forget, let's do the same thing. Just like I mentioned, because we are working with the pink that is lower quality, we have now waited and it's dried where we laid it on first. So let's go back, let's lay it on again, because that is one of the 2 ways that I mentioned we can get around the quality of this pink paint. Now let's do some pink over here, why not? Just giving it some balance. And I'll take some water just to blend it in, really blend it in over here, the edge. Making sure not to touch that green because a streak will ruin what we have so far. And one thing that I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take this pink again and I'm gonna go over the blue and the purple, And what this is gonna do, because the pink is so transparent, it's just gonna make it more cohesive with everything else that we have, almost like blending it into what we have. And so this line is not so hard on the painting. We'll just pile on the pink on that area of it. And again, I'll remind you, I'm working with paper that is specifically made for wet media, because if you don't do that and you start watercolor and acrylic painting on it, what's gonna happen is you're gonna destroy that paper. Okay, that's wonderful. So I want to see more pink over here, but I want to make sure that I don't blend it over here, because as you can see, we've created a good contrast between the hill here and the one next to it. So I will use it at the top, but that's it. I will not use it at the bottom. And we focused so much on blending these green lines earlier that it will be helpful if we go over it with some pink, because the pink is transparent, so it will just help with the blending of that color. So let's get closer to that green with the pink, and then I will do the exact same with the hills at the back of the painting. Remember, the more we blend, the more colors we pile on, the better it's going to look. And I'm gonna make sure where I'm piling on the pink that the bottom under it is already dry. Because when you're working with cheap paint, low quality paint, that's gonna be your saving grace. Just layering onto it, because it's so transparent. And so this is what we're gonna be doing here. The yellow has dried, so I'm gonna go around the green because the green hasn't dried yet, and we don't want to make a mistake where the pink blends with that green too much and it doesn't allow for that vibrancy of the pink to come through. Like that. That's exactly what I what I was trying to avoid. So let's just wipe it off. It's not a big deal. Let's grab some of that pink again. Layer that on. Just because it's transparent, we'll do a thick layer of it. We want it to be concentrated. And from here, just a little bit more, and we might have to go back to it. And here the green has dried, so let's go back and accentuate the hill a little bit again with the pink, because with all the blending, mixing of the colors, it got lost a little bit. Here we are again, and we'll make the hill pink. So it's coming around. You can see it's coming around a lot better than what we had, because as I said, the more you keep blending, you keep adding colors, the better the painting gets. That's why people say trust the process. It's truly what painting is about. You just have to trust the process. So let's give it some definition here with that contrast really quick. And what this painting needs, there's two areas here. There's this area here and this area here that I can already see needs some work. And for this area here, I've decided what it needs is pink but watered down. So I'm gonna lay it on as thick as this paint gets, and then I'll pick up a bit of that water and then blend it into the orange. And again, I mentioned this earlier, the reason I'm not just laying on the pink on that entire hill is because if I do that, it's gonna mix with the other hill that we have here. So we want to make sure we keep that contrast. So let's pile it on and then blend it out. Here, whoops. You know what, it's no problem. No problem. We'll fix it with some more pink. Just right there. It will be fine. It can stay like that. And then let's focus again. You know what? Before I move on from this area, I want some more contrast with that yellow that we were doing. So I will carefully, what I'm doing, as you can see, it's the opposite, technically the opposite of what we were doing, defining the hill with the pink, but I'm doing it now with the yellow on the outside because that's what's gonna help it get definition. And usually with children's drawings, you will see that children do this by just drawing, you know, a straight black line or a straight line. And that's what differentiates painting from just a children's drawing. It's beautiful. I love the way this blends with the pink. And we'll leave it like that for now. Now here, I can already tell I'm missing some of that beautiful pink. So I will just layer on. Make sure that it's dry first of all, before I layer that on. And then we'll take some more pink and put that on top of it. On top of both colors. And if they can be seen through that pink, I am completely okay with that. And the reason is that we want those undertones to shine. We see the principle that we were trying to imitate earlier and yesterday in the live stream yesterday, which is the colors that we have in the sky. We also want to have them in the hills. And it's a difficult concept to work with. There's a reason that Van Gogh is was such a master. So we're just learning today. So I'm gonna take some of this blue and I'm gonna play around with it strategically. Just lay it on kind of carelessly. If I do it too much, I might overdo it and might not look good. But if we just randomly lay it on some places that need help, it might help with that concept that we were working with earlier. So here I'll do the same. Now we have the beautiful blend, colorful blend. And this is one thing about Impressionism. Sometimes it just doesn't have to make sense. And I will dare to do a little bit of blue here. And I'm just realizing we ended up covering the river, so that blue might be it. That's one thing about paintings. Sometimes you don't end with what you had at the beginning. I think I will playfully add some of that blue here as well, even though we worked so hard blending all of those areas. So let's do that, and here a little bit of blue, though the reflection of my lamp is making that look really wet for you guys. But it's there. And you know, now that I'm playing with this blue, because this blue is a better quality, believe it or not, and this is a different brand from the one I've been showing you earlier. It's still from the dollar store, but I really like it a lot more than the other brands that we are using. I will use it just to put it on the roof of these houses. I like the depth that it gives these houses. So I will do the same with this one, and then add it on here as well. Now, The only thing that I can think about would make this painting better is giving windows to the houses that we've been making. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take white. I'm gonna take a little bit of a risk here. And I'm not going to leave them white. What I'm going to do is just lighten up the base before I add some of that pink, because we've had such a struggle with this pink color that I know that if we add some white underneath, that might make it a little bit more vibrant. And so here I want to play around a little bit as well, and I think we'll get back to that whimsical theme that we were talking about earlier. And I'll add some of that white and I'll let it dry a little bit before I add the pink again. And that pink will be a lot brighter after we've added this white at the bottom. And I will do the same. I think I want to see something else on here. It's almost like it needs some definition. I might add a little tree right here. Perhaps. I think that is what I'm thinking right now. So let's do the leaves by just tapping, stippling with that pencil, that brush. And I'm not gonna leave it white, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back after the white has dried, and I will pile on that pink, that tricky pink that we've been using. But what I hope you get from this video today is that no matter the quality of what you have, you can make something good out of it. And you know what? I really like that tree, so I'm gonna do one more right here. This one's gonna be a little bigger because it's supposed to be closer to us that are looking at this painting. And we'll follow the exact same pattern that we did here. Left is gonna have the brighter colors, the right is gonna have the fading out. And what the fading out does for us is that it looks like it's a shadow. So just like that, very easily do our little tree. Just because this one does have a little bit of a lighter shadow, let's pick up a bit of that green. Just a little bit of that green. Barely enough to cover the tip of the brushes, and then we'll come back and do the exact same thing we just did with the white. Cover it up. That way we have that green also giving some shadows. And I'm gonna keep the trunk white because I think it's giving it that whimsical vibe that we were going for. And I think the white that we did earlier has dried enough to where we can go over it with the white, and let's see what a difference that makes on this pink, because it is very transparent. So doing the white at the bottom, it really helped. And the reason I did the white over here is because I want to go over it as well with that pink, make it almost like inside the house it is pink. Perfect. I really like those trees, so I might just do a couple more. Let me take that white. Some stippling for the trunk. Make sure I'm using a lot of that white. Make it thick and a solid color. And I'll do 2 trunks at once. This time, these are supposed to be the top of the tree only. Because the further you get away from the painting, or the further you are away from it, the less you're supposed to be able to see. So we're doing the same thing, starting off on the left side, then really doing it on the right side. And as it becomes more see-through, that's okay because we want that to be the shadow. And we'll do the same thing we did with these 2 trees, which is go back in there with a bit of green, and that bit of green will make it look more like a shadow. Here I picked up a bit of extra white, to be honest, just out of habit, but I'm gonna pick up that green again, just a tiny bit, remember, tiny bit, and then from there continue with the stippling it on, creating that depth that is stronger. The shadow is stronger on the right side. Just because I really love how the trunk looks, I'm gonna go back in with that white. And this is really out of my comfort zone. I never use white in my paintings, but I will do it today because it looks good, and I've struggled to get such a strong color from these dollar store paints. I really like the way the white makes the trunk look, so just make it a little stronger on that side again. And I think this is pretty solid. One thing I want to do, let's do a little bit of highlight on that window, a little bit of highlight on this window, a bit on this window, the other windows as well. As if the trees are being reflected in those windows. And now that I'm playing around with the white, I'm thinking that if I do some of the white on the roof, it just might look like snow. Like leftover snow. If you live somewhere where there is snow, you know what I'm talking about. Doesn't always slide off and doesn't always melt. Sometimes everything else melts first and it's really left on the roof of the houses. And let's do this one as well. And the shape of the brush really helps here. The square brush. For this side, let's do a little bit less. And you know what? Let's make it a little darker. So I'm gonna wipe some of that white. And then I'm gonna do the same thing. And with the white being a little less bright, it looks like there's a shadow right there. Go back with a little bit of blue and make sure that it's really off-white and turn almost like a turned off white, like the white was there. I do want to add a little bit of definition here on the door before we finish. And we're almost done because this is a small painting, just a small sketch we're doing. There's not a lot of space to work with. And I'm gonna, can you guess? I'm gonna blend it in because we don't want to have any harsh straight or curved lines on this painting. So I'm just gonna blend it into the door without covering the yellow or the pink. And I might just add some of that yellow again so that it does not get lost when we added that green. So let's add some more yellow. Redo the yellow. There goes our whimsical village in about 60 minutes exactly. We have a whimsical village. We have worked with dollar store paint, which are very complicated to work with because they are so transparent and it's very hard to get a good contrast out of them. But I think that we have done today, it's pretty decent for the quality that we were working with. Let me know what you think, what I could have done better. Thank you so much if you stayed until the end. Thank you for joining. Thank you for the likes and subscribing. Please do make sure you subscribe and you like because that really helps me show my artwork to other people. Thank you for watching. You guys have a good night.